Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we have to share the because I don't think it comes on at the same time. Oh, okay, we'll switch. Yeah, we'll switch. No, at the same time, I think.
At the same time?
Yeah, I think if I'll speak a little and then she can translate.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Distinguished academics and other invited guests. Firstly, I must apologize that I cannot speak French. I can understand a little, but not enough to speak. Fortunately for me, Professor has agreed to translate, and I'll try to be fairly deliberate and slow so that hopefully some of you can follow what I've got to say. It's an honor for me to have been invited by the Royal Academy to come and both listen to what is going on, but also to share a little of what we're trying to do. Because actually it's amazing, although I didn't understand a lot, what we're doing and what I'm listening to, there is very close alignment between the two activities. So it is appropriate that I share with you what we're doing. Maybe before I actually tell you what we're doing, I need to tell you what gave rise to us forming the institute, the Mandela Institute for Development Studies. It is a result of my own personal journey. I'm Zimbabwean, and those of you who are informed about Southern Africa will know that Zimbabwe is pretty well a failed state. I've been in government for a little time. I've worked for multinational companies. I've worked in Europe, I've worked in the US, and I've worked on the African continent. And towards the end of my working career, I also worked for development financial institutions. So I was in Washington at the World Bank, and then I was in Tunis at the African Development Bank. All of these stops, if you want to call them that, left me with an impression that we as a continent, post-colonial Africa, are not doing well at all. But that is an obvious observation. What bothered me was that we as Africans behave as if Africa is doing okay. We behave as if Africa is doing okay. And the evidence of that is that there are not many platforms where we as Africans on our own do three things. Firstly, acknowledge that we are not in a good place. Secondly, try to understand why we are not doing well. Because if we don't do those two things, it is very unlikely and actually illogical that we would do anything different to get different results. That is what led us, me if you like, to think about setting up a platform to do those three things. Create a dialogue amongst ourselves to acknowledge that we are not doing well. And then try to understand, not in a superficial way, but in a genuine and undefensive way, why we are where we are. And lastly, to obviously then try to figure out what should we be doing differently in order to make progress. Should I stop there for a bit?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, merci. Bonjour, messieurs, dames. Je vais essayer de reprendre les points essentiels. Monsieur le docteur est honoré d'avoir été invité parce qu'il pense que certains points dans leur institut Mandela sont pareils, sont communs à ceux qu'il a entendu débattre. Le but de créer l'Institut Mandela, c'est de comprendre pourquoi il n'y a pas de progrès en Afrique. C'est-à-dire que l'Afrique post-coloniale n'a pas progressé, d'après le docteur. Et le constat, c'est que les gens se comportent comme s'il y avait un progrès. Donc il y a un manque de progrès et les gens se comportent comme si le progrès existait. Donc comment comprendre, la question essentielle, c'est comment comprendre ce manque de progrès. Et aussi créer un dialogue. Le but est de créer un dialogue pour comprendre les failles de cette marche en Afrique. Okay.
So as most of you I know are scientists, or you are in disciplines that are scientific, you'll understand how we went about then trying to set up an institution, and in particular choosing which particular program areas to begin with. The main driver was that I'm a physicist myself. I studied physics, so I formed a hypothesis. And my hypothesis was that one of the key contributors to why we are doing badly is because we are not genuine. Everything that we do on the continent appears to me to be fundamentally about mimicking other people. We mimic other people. All our institutions, there is nothing that we do which is based on who we are, our own histories, our own knowledge systems. Everything is copied from somewhere. Just look at this room and the languages we are using. French and English. Not African languages. We can't even understand each other without using somebody else's language. Isn't that sad? But that's our reality. And I think we need to recognize that if we're going to be able to do something about it. The second thing that is a problem is that we are in self-denial. We are trying to be somebody else as opposed to being ourselves. But you can never be somebody else, which means we've set ourselves up to fail from the beginning, because you will never be able to change yourself and be somebody else. So it means, I think that the colonizer actually never believed they could be so successful. Because when they left, we became the agent to colonize ourselves further in very subtle ways, in actually not so subtle ways. So our choice of program areas then was informed through those two observations. We are always mimicking. There is nothing genuine about our institutions. And secondly, we are in denial. And at the risk of annoying you all, especially the academics, let me tell you what I've discovered. So, in our institution, we don't have enough money to employ our own academics. So we outsource research. We go and look for institutions with smart people like you. And then we try to get them to do research for us. But what I've discovered, unfortunately, is that most of you don't want to do African research for African people. You want to do research for the Sorbonne, for Oxford, for Harvard, because that's where you got your recognition to start with. So you continuously want to keep those people over there recognizing you, as opposed to your own people recognizing the work you do. So there is a problem. As we support academic work, our academicians are so brainwashed most of the time that they don't want to do anything that is genuinely contextual and African. They want to do things that are recognized elsewhere, not on the African continent. So I know that I'm not being very polite, but that's unfortunately what I've come to realize. So the program areas then that we chose, the first one is called African Heritage, which I hope speaks for itself. Our view is that unless we get comfortable with investigating who we are, where we've come from, what our own ways of doing things were, so that we can modernize our own ways and use them as the foundation pillars for our modern institutions will forever be mimicking other people, and we're not going to succeed. Like I said, because we cannot be what we're not. So that's the first program area. The second one was based on just observing and acknowledging that Africa is a young continent. As you know, about 70% of Africans can be categorized as young. They are young people. And so we have put together a program on everything we do is Pan-African. So it's not South African, it's Pan-African, where we get together with African youth regularly to try and make them realize that most of the old people, in terms of the stakes and the future, it is their future that is at stake. And so that they take ownership of creating the future that they believe in. They must take ownership. They must not ask people like me to do it for them. Because although we like it or not, I mean, whether we like it or not, most of our countries are attempting to practice democracy. I know it's not perfect, but all democratic institutions are majoritarian. Even if they are imperfect, they are majoritarian, which means if young people knew exactly what they wanted and could mobilize each other, there is not a single African election which they would not influence. So the quality of the election and the results of the election would be determined by them. So when we meet with them, what I say to them to be provocative, I tell them that everything that is wrong on the continent is their fault. Because if they chose, they would change it. Yeah? The next program we do is economic integration. Why economic integration? In a globalized world, every single African country's economy is subscale, is not competitive. So we need to know and get smart and agglomerate our economies and create one African economy of scale. So when we talk about India, we talk about China, we talk like that and then we say Africa on the other side. But actually there is no such construct economically. Africa is a name and a geographic mass, but that's pretty well all there is. There is no cohesion. There is 54 separate economies. And each one of those economies, if they were a private company, they would have been taken over because they are not competitive. So we just need to wake up and make our economies work in a way which creates an African economy of scale by integrating them. Then we'll become globally competitive. So that's the third area in which we're working. The last area, which is complementary to the youth programs and the economic integration programs, is actually a scholarship program that we're working together with the academy. The academy are our partners, amongst others. What we're setting out to do may be rather immodestly, if you like, is that we want to create African leaders of tomorrow who are going to do all these things, because I think the current crop of leaders on the continent are past it. They will never get it done. But when we look to you, young people, those of you who are young, I think the chance of you doing things differently, provided we work with you and give you the tools, is okay, it's there. So what we've set out to do is to make scholarships available for African youth to study, not in America, not in Europe, not in China, not in Japan, but study on the African continent with one proviso. You cannot study in your own country. You study on the African continent, but you have to go to another country other than your own so that you get to know the continent. And the young people, being who they are, some of them will go there and get married. But through these practices, young people will get to know each other. They'll create networks. They'll get to know the continent. And when they become leaders of tomorrow, they'll be much more capable of creating cohesion amongst African countries and create what I was saying, referring to earlier, a continent with one economy of scale that can be competitive, a leadership that knows how to work with each other, an African Union which actually means something, not just a theoretical construct. So those are our programs, and that's why they are there. But we are a very young institution. We only started in 2010, so only 7 years old, but we believe that our mission is a big one. Thank you very much. I think, yeah.
Est-ce que c'était nécessaire de traduire ou pas?
Un petit peu. Huh? Because I'm asking, is it necessary to translate? Because the way you attracted the audience, I could see that they understood. Bon, quelques mots, madame, les grandes lignes, d'accord.
Non, le problème qu'a soulevé le docteur au début, c'était que les Africains, enfin, nous sommes surtout versés dans l'imitation des autres. Et que, bon, l'exemple qu'il a donné, c'est le problème des langues. Et il a aussi souligné que cela se développait en un manque de confiance en soi. Donc, les choix de l'Institut c'est-à-dire pour faire la recherche, il a parlé de trois axes. Oui, trois axes, trois programmes. Renforcer l'héritage africain. Donc pour le continent qui est quand même jeune, encourager les jeunes à se prendre en main, voilà, à se prendre en main, encourager les jeunes à se prendre en main. Et il a donné l'exemple d'ailleurs des élections, que les jeunes peuvent avoir un poids au moment des élections. Il y a aussi l'intégration économique. Oui, le deuxième point. Par la création d'un modèle économique africain. Et aussi que ce modèle créerait beaucoup de compétitivité. Alors, le troisième programme, c'est le programme des bourses. Créer un réseau de bourses en Afrique, c'est-à-dire qui serait géré par l'Institut Mandella, et faire en sorte que les boursiers travaillent ou étudient sur le continent et pas ailleurs, et pas dans leur propre pays. Voilà, pas dans leur propre pays et pas à l'étranger. Donc ils doivent circuler sur le continent. Et cela leur permettrait de créer un réseau pour aider les étudiants et les boursiers. Voilà.
Merci, Madame professeure Bouznier. Merci, docteur Moyo, quand même pour son intervention qui a, à mon sens, présenté quand même la philosophie et la vision de l'Institut, et qui est la vision aussi et la philosophie qui est derrière les programmes qui sont menés par l'Institut Mandela. Essentiellement, j'insisterai sur le dernier programme, à savoir le programme des bourses d'étudiants pour créer le leadership au niveau de l'Afrique, parce que c'est comme cela qu'on peut créer quand même les leaders de demain pour le continent africain. D'étudier dans un pays africain, de se déplacer vers un autre pays africain pour les études, et d'assurer la mobilité au niveau de l'Afrique. Nous savons par exemple à quel point des programmes au niveau de l'Europe, par exemple, jouent un rôle tel que Erasmus, etc. Alors c'est l'idée un peu de créer un programme pareil au niveau de l'Afrique. Et c'est au niveau de ce programme que la fondation de l'Académie, quand même, est partenaire, et est en train de préparer un partenariat avec l'Institut Mandela. Donc, je donne la parole à l'assistance. C'est pour réserver quand même un temps au débat. On prendra peut-être une demi-heure comme ça, ou une demi-heure. Et je prends.
Before they ask, can I say something?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah. Can you? I mentioned in my speech that the Academy is partnering us. I just want you to help me to thank the Permanent Secretary and Madam Bukia personally, because when I came here about a couple of years ago?
Yes. 2 years.
2 years ago, and they explained, I just explained the concept of what we're doing. They took it on board, and like I jokingly say, I hope you understand, that Madam Bukia became my babysitter. She accompanied me all the way until the partnership was formed, and I've just been informed that the Academy is forming a board, a foundation, and the board of the foundation. And I'm glad to share with you that I'm told, I hope I'm not speaking out of 10, that Madam Bukia will be my boss, the chairman of the foundation. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you.